Hello and welcome to Geekatplay Studio. In our tutorial today, you're going to need some gloves, a warm hat, and maybe you'll want a sweater because we're going to be working with snow. We'll be making some winter scenes and we'll begin now by creating our fractal terrain. Right-click, Edit Object, and right here in our editor, you have 0 edges, so click there. And what that does is to make the mountains go all the way to the edge to just get cut off and not slope down. And we'll take our camera now and bring it in a little bit closer. It's almost overlooking the terrain. And now let's go bring in the texture for our terrain. Double time click to edit and we'll select as our main layer some rocks, maybe. This brown rock, I think we might want to use that. But let's see what else we have here. Landscape. We'll probably just use the brown rocks and that will serve our purpose very nicely. So we'll take a quick peek. And this is what that looks like with those brown rocks. And so now let's add some snow to this. And doing this, we'll just add a layer. And as our layer, we already have snow that comes with the view pack. You can see here that they're just mixing up. To increase the snow, we can increase the alpha boost and make the one go over the other. So now this is less transparent. Let's go to environment and first let's take a look at our mini screen. So now in the environment we want to make it depend on the slope edge right here. Increase the fuzziness so it's like the snow dissipates at lower altitudes. And maybe let's go into orientation, and we'll actually say more about orientation in our next materials. But for right now, we'll just do this. Now, in preferred orientation, you have a 0, and that means it will be located on your left side by default from the camera view. And 180 is going to be on the right. And this is like a 360-degree rotation. And so the material's right there. So let's go in and preview what we have now. So we're really only seeing snow, so we need to also work with our altitude constraint. And we'll just put it a little higher in the altitude. We'll increase the fuzziness on the bottom. Keep on checking. And this will give us a little bit more natural distribution. This is actually not hard to do, and you've probably done something similar to make the snow go on the mountains. And now something more interesting, let's add our trees. So we'll go to our material, we'll go to ecosystem, so that adds an additional layer, and we'll go in and add a plant. And as a plant, we'll add a fir tree. And if we populate it, we can see how they come up on this landscape. And we probably want to increase the density and then increase the scale a little. So those look a little better around there. Also, you need to understand the way we populate them, they will be affected by the environment slope. So if we increase the range of altitude, letting more of them appear in the lower altitudes, decrease the fuzziness, and that's just happening in that layer. And if you look now what is happening with our winter trees, they don't have any snow at all. So we need to add snow to them. And sometimes what people do is they change all this on one object and then duplicate them to manually populate the environment, and that's a little hard to do. But we'll go into the Material tab and then we'll click on Fir Branches. And we'll work in the Color tab. Select Color Blend, right-click Edit Color, and we'll just select a white color for this. And go all the way Color Mask Enable, and you can see now that it's white. Let's go to highlights and make those highlights a little bit bluish now. So let's make the intensity bright, size a little duller, and see what we have now. And there you go. Here's our snow trees. Also, if you want more green to peek through in these trees, you can work more with blending. But you can see how this gave us that snow and frost that we wanted. You can overlay almost any color you want. So if you want something more dry, you can add just yellowish. And this is the fastest and easiest way to apply that. And that's just one feature that we're using. You can go into Atmosphere, load an atmosphere, and we'll use something kind of dark and overcast. Stormy looking, like there's more snow coming. And you can increase the fog for a more wintry effect. So now here's our terrain with the snow and the white snowy fir tree. And we did this pretty quickly with our color overlay. And you can apply this to any kind of leaves in trees and do something similar with any tree. And now here's another snow scene we can create. So we'll clear this one out and change our atmosphere back to the modeling one. And I like this one because it spreads out the light evenly and makes it easier to work with our models. Okay, and now we'll put in a tree. So we'll just take our simple large dead tree for now and see what we can do with this. And we'll just move our camera a little bit up, look down. And this is our basic tree, and you can see that it just has this bark. It's just kind of a dead tree, and you can apply anything to it. And we'll go in here to our material and we'll add a layer. And let's add a snow layer to this. And we'll just alpha boost that layer boost to max. And let's go to environment. And here it's kind of interesting because we're going to start working with the slope. So I'll move this bottom slope range up a little bit. And the preferred orientation is what side it is going on. So I want the snow to just kind of stick with the blowing wind. I can increase the tightness a little bit and you can see the effect that has. So actually if you go more, you can see how that side changes. And again, because that is 0, if we preview it right now, you can see that this will be on our left side. That smoothness, smooth gray snow. So if we rotate it, it will go around. And let's increase the fuzziness because blowing snow dissipates like that. And we also want to move up that slope range. And let's increase the fuzziness, the steepness, and flat. And so if we see what we have with our positioning, you can see how the snow has blown onto the side of the tree right here. To see this better, we can change it to a red color and maybe change that one to green. So now you can get a better idea of how these materials are applying onto the tree. But of course we want to put a bit more on the side, so we'll just increase the fuzziness on the flat and decrease it on the steep. And here also, if you increase the fuzziness on the top in the altitude, it will add extra layers. decrease, no, fuzziness on the bottom, and again, play with orientation tightness. And here we have our preview, so let's switch back to the snow. So on the top you can decrease that a little bit more. Work with the slope range if you want to add more snow in there or in here. Again, the orientation is what side it is on, and that makes it more realistic. Let's look right there and let's edit the function and let's add. So we have a bump map and we'll increase the depth. And you know what? I don't see that very well. So I probably need to increase the amplitude to make it a little bit more like an accumulation of snow. Of course, we need to increase our scale. And there you go, that looks better. And while we're here, I want to change this color and make it look a little bit darker. So we get a higher contrast so we can see that snow more easily. Now, if we look at it, we have the tree where the wind has blown the snow onto from the side. And you can tweak some things in here as much as you want in the environment. I want to decrease this altitude range up a little bit. Bottom fuzziness, I'll increase it. And there is another way we can use a material to add snow to the tree. It is just kind of starting to stick. And to do this, you can always go to the top here and save the material. So I'll replace that one. And you always can save the textures that you like. Let's delete this one for now. And let's go create a simple terrain. And I want to move the height up here. Whoa, that looks kind of ugly. Let's go into erode and smooth that out here. We'll flatten our ugly terrain and put it a little bit in the back. Let's take our camera and drop it a little down. And this will be our background. And now let's create another terrain. Edit it and erode with diffuse so it'll look a little bit softer and older. And we'll go in here to dig and flatten it out a little here. And we'll just place it now. So we have two. Let's populate them, and we'll select the first one, click, go to Ecosystem, add a plant, and you know what? We can select this dead tree. It doesn't look like we have too many of them, so let's increase the density, uncheck decay from foreign object. And now we have a few more of them. Let's click OK and go into this terrain now. Ecosystem. In this terrain, I don't want to just populate it. I want more control. So I'll use the paintbrush for that. So I'll switch on brush, and right here we'll just put them in here. Take some away. And now we have kind of a corridor of trees going through here. And we can also do the same thing on this first terrain. Switch to this, go to paint, and use the eraser tool to get rid of some of these trees so we have our trail through the trees continue on back through the scene. So let's take our camera and point it right in here. And here's our scene set up. So once we think the composition is okay, we can now start to modify our materials. Let's go into our tabbed materials, and if we go down here we can see that these are our materials. We just need to click on those materials, and because we've already saved our snow tree, we can open it. If you didn't save it, of course you can go ahead and change it the way we did before in the way you need. This is actually a very nice option that was added in View 6. So for your ecosystem, you can easily apply it to all the materials in your ecosystem to modify them if you need it. So we applied that to this, and also we can go into our terrain and we can go to default and maybe switch to just plain snow. Go to this one, and let's go do the same for this, and in the same way we'll just switch it to snow. Let's go to atmosphere, and one thing in the atmosphere, let's modify it ourselves. We always load preset, but let's just go in here and increase our fog. And let's change the haze to be a more grayish color, so it's a little bit darker. We'll drop the sky a little bit down so it looks a little more yellowish, and let's change the fog to white, so there will be a little more distance. Also, if you want, you can modify this one to make it a little more grayish. The sky is bluish, grayish, and it will give us a more cold feeling in this composition. Let's add a few clouds into it. We probably want something darker sitting down there. Let's add another one. Okay, and here's our lighting, and we want to probably go to more ambient light. And these all look good, so let's do a preview render and see what we have at this stage. And you can see that the material we applied worked out very well. It looks like snow is sticking on the top, and under here there's less snow here because we applied this with map and altitude, and that's a little more realistic, a little darker in the underneath. One thing we probably want to do is to modify the terrain right here and make the amount of snow match our trees. So let's do this. Let's take our camera and move it a little bit above, just slightly, so I can see the terrain a little more. And let's go into our terrain, and let's add an additional layer. And let's make this layer something darker, like rocks and plants. And we can boost up the alpha on this slightly so that it shows through. And we'll go into environment. We can actually increase the fuzziness. So you can see there will be a little snow here. We can go in transparency, if you remember, and in global transparency we can actually delete that and add a fractal node and reduce the largest feature, increase the roughness. So this will create a more snow kind of look, like this. Just increase the alpha boost on that. And if we take a look, you'll see that the terrain has more detail. If we make it interact with the objects above, we could actually make it darker under the trees so they've sheltered the ground from the snow, with more snow in the open areas. And that was something we've done in a previous tutorial with ecosystem interaction. So you can add objects that interact with each other. And this is coming along really nicely. So let's go in here now. And if we boost up the rocks and plants a little bit more and go to transparency, and maybe we want to add more roughness and gain into this. Clip it a little more. Make it a little sharper looking right here. This alpha boost. Okay. Now if you want, you could go above, click Save, and we'll just save this texture as a terrain. So you can reuse it or copy and start from it. So now we can apply the same to this terrain. Yes, we do want to populate it. Okay. And let's see. If you notice, our trees are keeping the same materials as we applied before on them. All the materials are the same for the plants. But when we populated it, the trees didn't go in as before. So we'll just go in to the pane and fix that. Just add a few more. And I think that is almost done, except that maybe we want to increase the fog density and the haze. And there. And now let's go into our final render and see what we've got. And here is our finished project. Of course, we could add additional filters and overlays, so we could actually have a snowstorm going, or we could add more fog. But I wanted to give you a clear view of how the snow applies with altitude and with slope and directions on the snow, so they stick on the branches. It isn't going just from the top. And these are the coldest kinds of storms, with tiny snow crystals and harsh winds that bite your nose. Ooh, I'm going to go get a cup of hot chocolate now. Thank you for watching this Geekatplay View tutorial. For resources, answers, more tutorials, and our forum, please visit us at www.geekatplay.com or viewtutorials.com.